I'd like to call this public meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away in our community, especially retired Scranton firefighter Brian Bengini. Please keep the Bengini family in your thoughts this evening. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Donahue?
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to take from the table file of council number 19 of 2022.
There is a motion on the floor.
Second.
Sorry. Second.
Second.
There is a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table file of the council number 19 of 2022. This piece of legislation taken from the table, and this piece of legislation is being taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote. This ordinance is the capital budget for 2023, and it had been tabled to allow for a public hearing and additional public comment on the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table Resolution Number 118, 2022.
Second.
There is a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table Resolution Number 118 of 2022. This piece is being taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote. This resolution is the agreement with Highland Associates for the restoration and repairs to the exterior of City Hall. We are waiting on correct backup for this legislation, which we received and is in our backup of the legislation found online. Anyone on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, City Council report for code enforcement received September 27, 2022 from OECD. 3B, memorandum from Romilda Crocamo, Esquire, received September 27, 2022 regarding legislation. 3C, City of Scranton's tire recycling event that will be held October 15, 2022. 3D, City of Scranton's fall 2022 leaf recycling schedule as provided by the Department of Public Works.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items?
I'm just going to make a comment on a third order item. It was one that we just pulled from the table about the City Hall upgrades. So when looking at that last week, I noticed some things that were incorrect. I did, say that it brought the bidder that was selected out of the lowest bidder category, and I do understand that it's in the administration's realm to choose who they feel is most qualified, the RFQ, but I just wanted to make that stated at the time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on any third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have one. This evening starts Yom Kippur, and to anyone who observes, I just wanted to wish them an easy fast.
I would just like to announce that the Steamtown Marathon is scheduled for Sunday, October 9th. We have over 1,025 runners registered from over 35 states and 5 countries. The race will begin at 8 a.m. at Forest City High School, and will travel through 14 municipalities and end up here in downtown Scranton at the finish line on North Washington Avenue. Just want to remind people if they would please be patient with the runners between pretty much the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. In the city. The volunteers and the police will be making every effort to make sure that traffic can keep moving and cross the path, the running path. But I just want to thank everyone for their help and participation in this great city event, and we're hoping for great weather. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to add to that, I'm happy to see the Steamtown Marathon coming back this year, and to acknowledge Councilman King for all the hard work that he puts into putting on that event. Are there any other announcements? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Before we start citizens' participation tonight, I would like to just make a quick statement regarding the rules of council. Last week during citizens' participation, a resident made comments that bear no repeating because they were vile and hateful. Those comments had absolutely nothing to do with the business of the city, which is why we are all here, and everything to do with ignorance, bigotry, and racism. My colleagues and I, along with many others who were subjected to this resident's comments, were rightly outraged. As council president, it is my job to ensure these meetings are conducted with civility and decorum, and I will not tolerate anything less. There is a fine line between someone's First Amendment right to free speech and common decency, something we all should have been taught at a young age. The citizens' participation portion of our meetings represent democracy in action. And I would urge all speakers tonight to be respectful with their comments. As a reminder, council rules specifically state that no person, including members of council, shall use their time during citizens' participation to personally insult or attack any individual, name-calling, profanity, racial or ethnic slurs, discriminatory remarks based on race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, or place of birth, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, marital status, or age, or any other behavior that is inconsistent with the purpose and intent of conducting official business shall not be permitted. We are here to conduct the business of the city, and we look forward to listening to your comments and concerns. So with that, first on the list is Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. I'm going to start with a quote I think you've heard before. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Now, I've spent most of the past week thinking a lot about the comments that were made last week and about Chris Kelly's very good column that he wrote on Saturday. And if you don't want me to repeat what the speaker said, I would just say that he made a reference to putting illegals in concentration camps. And I spent 23 years in the Army protecting his First Amendment right to free speech. But during that time, I spent 6.5 years in Germany, and I visited Dachau, which is very near Munich, and I will say it was a most disturbing experience, one that I'll never forget. And I can't imagine any rational person wanting to recreate that madness for any reason whatsoever. I mean, it's just astounding that anyone would suggest such a thing. I have to agree with Rabbi Schwartz that when hateful speech is spoken, it must not go unanswered, and that we must speak out immediately. Now, I couldn't do that last week because you don't get two turns at the podium. So this is my first opportunity to speak out. When that speaker comes to the podium, I will listen closely to what he has to say, and I will respect his First Amendment rights, even if his words are hateful, ignorant, and downright stupid. And at the end of the day, I will give him all the respect that he and his opinions deserve, no more and no less. And I would suggest that you do the same. Now, moving on to tonight's agenda. Item 5B, the DPW contract. I was surprised that in the backup, the copy of the agreement says tentative agreement. Is that now written in stone?
I believe it just says tentative because it is not,
Well, you take a look at
because we
Article-
have to pass it for it to be,
Yeah, well, Article 3 says modify this section in accordance with the James ruling. That doesn't sound very concrete. Take a look at Article 3. Also, since they worked on this thing for 9 months, I would like to see some hard numbers. Now, we know that they're going to get a 2% wage increase starting on September 13th through the end of the year. What does that come out to number-wise? You should be able to calculate it because I did. You should have that in the backup. I would like to see the numbers, the hard numbers for the savings and/or costs of the changes in health care, life insurance, short-term disability benefits, reduced buyouts, and the city's increase in pension contributions. Those numbers should be in the backup before you get to a final reading and passing that contract. Also, somebody needs to take that tentative agreement, fold it into the actual contract so that it reads as one document and post it on your website. Now, what's the status of the other contracts?
to my understanding, the negotiations are still ongoing.
And the beat goes on.
Yes.
How about the 2021 audit?
We have still not received the 2020,
Second
One
verse,
audit.
same as the first.
yes.
I did get some
Okay.
update. I did get an update if you'd like me to cover it in fifth order.
Okay, please do. And that's all I have tonight. Hopefully next week I'll be in a better frame of mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Barb O'Malley.
Good evening. Last week, a man stood at this podium and made vile, disgusting comments about a family of immigrants who settled in our community. He stated that he wanted to round up illegal immigrants and put them in a concentration camp. A concentration camp. A place where children last saw their grandparents as they were being led away to gas chambers, where people's bodies were ravaged by lice and open sores, where people starved to death. As Councilwoman Rothchild reflected, how someone could have such a callous disregard for the horrific sufferings of others and to say such hurtful things is truly incomprehensible. In my opinion, he is beyond redemption. But I am here because of what inaction on my part would say about me as a member of this community. I too, like Councilman Rothchild, cannot and will not be silent in the face of such venom. I cannot ignore or brush off his comments as the deranged rantings of a misinformed bigot. Hate speech must be denounced in no uncertain terms. Hateful speech is not reflective of my community. My community is filled with caring people like my neighbor, Norma Jeffers, who came to this podium last week and calmly refuted the speaker's ugly assertions. In 2017, elementary school children and their parents started a campaign in response to rising anti-immigrant sentiments. Their message, simple yet powerful, is hate has no home here. I display a sign on my front yard with these words printed on in a variety of languages to declare that hateful words and actions against others will not be tolerated in my home. I came here tonight to publicly say to Mr. Ellman and his ilk, your hate is not welcome here. Your hate has no home here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Karen Lemery. I'm sorry if I butchered. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Karen Lemery, but I'm not a Karen. I love living in Scranton. I'm originally from Vineland, New Jersey, where I taught English as a second language for 12 years. I grew up in that diverse community built by hardworking immigrants and minorities. In fact, the population of my class in 1971 was about 1/3 white, 1/3 Latino, and 1/3 people of color. In 1990, I moved to Morgantown, West Virginia. Sadly, during the events of the past few years, I saw growing racism, bigotry, and homophobia consume the souls of the people of that state. When I retired, I wanted to move to a place that reflected my values, but I didn't want to live in a place where everyone looks like me, speaks English like me, chooses who they love, and have the same customs as me. Now, I do confess that my daughter lives in Old Forge, and that did affect my choice to live in the area of Pennsylvania. But a little over 2 years, I chose to move to Scranton because of its diversity, spirit, strength, and its great restaurants. But after watching the video of the city council meeting last week, I was heartsick and appalled. Now, I do realize that citizens of this country have the freedom to believe what they want, but we do not have the right to blatant hate speech. We do not have the right to advocate the violence to overthrow a legitimate government, to disparage other human beings by stating they should be placed in concentration camps. And what made this worse was it was done in this building during a city council meeting, and this spewing of vitriol and unadulterated hate was allowed to continue for 5 minutes. This is unacceptable. If the person speaking were a person of color, a minority, or an immigrant, we all know it would have been stopped immediately. I was also taken aback by the tone and attitude of Mr. Donahue when he snapped at Dr. Rothchild for trying to stop the vile rant. I know condescending male behavior when I see it. He never would have spoken to a male colleague in that manner.
I don't believe I was speaking, I'm sorry. I don't believe I was not speaking towards Dr. Rothchild. You know, when you're up here, you have a full view and you see people, so it's trying to tone down. I said relax to try to tone down
Okay.
the rhetoric overall.
And I said, telling a female council member, relax. What's with that? Dr. Rothchild had the right and had the responsibility to step up and end this disgusting behavior. We cannot let this stand. None of this is acceptable, and I hope to God it never happens again and is allowed to go on for so long. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the list, Bob Bolus.
Evening, Bob Bolus, Scranton. Council, I've got a few things based on everything that's been going on. I've been coming here for many years. I'm going to put a few words out there, and you tell me whether they violate the rules of council or not. Ignorant fool. Stated, name calling is not allowed by the rules of decorum. Weak-minded bully. Disgusting, disgraceful comments and spewed uneducated venom against the speaker here. Did they violate the rules of council?
Yes.
Okay. Bill Gahan, past president, on the record at March 10th, 2020, Scranton Council meeting, called me an ignorant fool, stated name calling is not allowed by the rules of decorum, but that wasn't name calling because it's true. Called me a weak-minded bully, said I made disgusting, disgraceful comments and spewed uneducated venom. Those were comments made to me by the past president of council, which I took as a great insult. I've done more for this city of Scranton in many, many ways than Bill Gaugh can ever even imagine. He's in a federal lawsuit right now. And I hope justice is served that Bill Gahan never serves another day as a city official in any type of capacity. This is not what this forum was for. I read with great interest Chris Kelly, and him and I have gone back and forth for many, many years, but we'll sit down, have a cup of coffee together and still talk. Because what happens here doesn't mean a darn thing outside or anywhere else. And when I read his article, the comments that were made here disturbed me. But a question I have, who removes the council president when he makes those kind of comments to a speaker here? Since the council president could remove an individual here, have them thrown out or whatever it may be. Who removes the council president or any council member from council?
According to the rules of council, the council president has the sole discretion to enforce the rules of council.
Okay, what I just read you was a violation of the rules of council by the council president. Who removes him from making those comments?
All I'm responsible for is how I conduct myself, and
I understand that, Kyle. What I'm asking the
but so I don't know
question, what we need to look at, it's a double-edged sword here. If the council president makes these kind of derogatory comments to a citizen in this city, and it's against the rules and violates them, who removes them from council? And that's something council's got to take up now on an agenda and make that determination that if the council president or any member of council does what Bill Gahan did then, they need to remove him from the seat. Because if it could be against us, it's also got to be against them. And I'm asking council tonight, based on everything that went on here, it's time we start putting the rules down for everybody. You know, it's basically the law's the law, and it's for everyone. So is everything that goes on in here, whether it's a council president or a speaker. Council's got to live by the sword just like we do. And I'm asking you guys to do it. Remember, council and the mayor took our voice away by putting Joe Biden's name on city streets. You didn't give us a chance to speak about it. You took our right away. 6 people voted for everybody in the city. I like a motion, I put this out here before, to put it on a referendum at this November election coming up, unless everybody's so darn afraid that the name's gonna come the hell off the street signs and we're gonna go back to live in our city and it's gonna be ruled by the people who live here, not a handful of people who think that they could dictate to us on how we have to live, whether we agree with them or not. Thank you.
next on the list, Lee Morgan.
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. The first thing I have here is the Council President read off some kind of rules that you believe you're entitled to enforce, but, you know, the court's already ruled on what's open for discussion in this forum. And to be honest with you, I don't think you get to make that decision. And if you were to make a decision on controlling somebody's speech, just let the court decide if you're showing defiant indifference to the ruling of a court. And you'll stand in front of a judge and he'll tell you what he thinks. And you know what you'll do? You'll stand there and listen. The second thing I have here, we're talking about creating another authority. It's almost ridiculous. We just sold the sewer authority. Pennsylvania American Water consumed it and the reserve. And how much money from that sale went into the pensions? I think none. I think we injected borrowed money into the pensions.
We actually, we did borrow money, but that borrowing has already been paid off with money that was in escrow.
Well, that's
So
fine.
that was left over from the sewer sale.
But that's fine. But the whole idea is we never should have borrowed anything. And the other thing is, when we name another authority, it shouldn't be done. The city needs to follow the course of action that was going to take place to retain the authority. We need to build retention ponds. We need to, on our own, build a small facility capable of handling the flow of this water and stop creating authorities which hold Scrantonians and citizens and property owners hostage to an authority that they don't have the authority to liquidate. Once you create authorities, you don't have the power to remove them. Okay, now, I want to do another ECTV, but I'm having a tough time setting up a time to do it because I really think what the city of Scranton needs to do is unincorporate itself. Okay? And in the process of unincorporating itself, reorganize itself under a timeline to get rid of all the authorities, all the contracts, shed the Scranton Fire and Police Department to the county and make it a regional police force, and refound the city without all the shenanigans that politics has created. And it's legal. You can unincorporate this city and give most of its obligations and authorities to the county. And by the same token, rewrite in that ballot question whether you want to reorganize this city or not. Because to be honest with you, my question is, where are the kooks and the crazies at? Because I think they're at the council, and I think they're in the mayor's office, and I think they're at the county commissioner's office. Because you reign over us like we're your subjects, and you don't want to hear anything we have to say on any issue. And that's why there's no legitimate small business incubator. That's why people can't afford to pay their property taxes. That's why senior citizens sold their properties and moved to high-rises. That's why there's just unbelievable amounts of poverty in this city. That's why there's kids going to school, and you can't understand how they could be forced into poverty. The government's doing it. You've shed all the employment opportunities out of the country. And this president, in my opinion, he's the problem we have in this country, and the vice president. They had looters, robbers, and everything else during the 2020 elections, burning and looting everything, and then they were bailing them out of jail. Now you got women getting raped in some of these democratic cities. And you know, when you start talking about rape, let's talk about the 37 to 40% of illegal people coming across our border that are female that are being raped. Where the people that are getting paid to ferry them across our border have put up panty trees to brag about all the women they've raped. This is the president we have in office. So when we get indignant about what one man says at this podium, we need to take a look at and hear what our elected leaders are saying, especially the ones in office. And understand one thing. This country's in decline, not because of the ordinary person, but because of the government they've elected. What government sheds all of its manufacturing and technology jobs all around the world for the lowest possible wage and starts unionizing warehouse workers because that's all that's left? Thank you.
Next on the list is, and forgive me if I'm butchering this name, but it's Ushu Mukalelo.
Council members, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to tell a story of who we are, a story about refugees from the Democratic Republic of Congo who came to this country, happy and proud to be part of the greater Scranton community. Last week, a Scranton resident that I found appropriate to characterize as misinformed and hateful grandpa came here to tell Scrantonians how he read a story about one of our families and took to the podium to trash the entire Congolese community of Scranton, a group, as he referred to us, that boasts of 55 families in the city that have emerged thanks to the U.S. refugee resettlement. Council members, ladies and gentlemen, there are several falsehoods that the misinformed and hateful grandpa made about us, and it's important to clarify this. As a proud African, this situation reminds me of an African saying, if you want to kill a monkey, don't look at its eyes. You might think it's a human being. The misinformed and hateful grandpa, without a doubt, does not represent Scranton values, American values. He certainly does not understand our stories as refugees, and nor does he understand how we got here in the first place. I don't want this African saying to be taken out of context. What I'm saying is that the behavior and sentiments reflected in the misinformed and hateful grandpa last Tuesday speech in this room should cause a chilling effect in every resident of this historic city. It's not just up to us to stand up to the ridiculous lines of lies and hateful speech. Every Scrantonian should, and this is exactly what this saying is all about. All of us, all Scrantonians, should call the misinformed and hateful grandpa for who he is, not informed and driven by hate, and maybe a racist. Council members, ladies and gentlemen, the Congolese community of Scranton comprises of 55 refugee families from the Democratic Republic of Congo who have been resettled from various refugee camps to the city of Scranton. Others were resettled to other cities such as Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Chicago, and have decided to move here because of how conducive this city is to Congolese refugees in particular. Relatively small and convenient in a lot of ways. We've lived in refugee camps and urban centers in various African countries, not because we chose it, but because of the political crisis plaguing our country up to today. We came here through a legal process that includes rigorous scrutiny of our lives to determine if we fit the refugee definition as stipulated in the 1951 UN Refugee Convention. Multiple interviews, medical checkups, U.S. cultural orientation, to enduring months of wait to obtain a visa that allows us to come in. To give a clear picture of what refugee resettlement involves, I have this statement pulled from Bob Casey's website. Quote, refugee applicants are subject to the highest level of scrutiny. Refugee applicants are subject to the highest level of scrutiny checks for any category of travelers to the U.S., the process which involves 18 to 24 months of review, including screening by the National Counterterrorism Center, the FBI Terrorism Screening Center, and the Departments of Homeland Security, Defense, and State. This robust process includes biographic and biometric analysis, end quote. Council members, ladies and gentlemen, I hope the misinformed and hateful grandpa finds mercy to understand that we are safe and don't pose a threat to our city. And now, our new country that has given us a second chance, USA. I hope he finds God's mercy to see us as useful people who came to this country with good intentions. I hope the Holy Spirit of the Most High transforms him from having hate in his heart to someone that sees us as a positive people that are doing all they can to positively contribute to the well-being of this city, the county, the state, and the union. Council members, ladies and gentlemen, in the last 7 years or so, our families have been working and paying taxes. have opened businesses in the city. Our parents have seen our children graduate from high schools and colleges. Our families have sent their children to serve in the military. Our sisters are serving in the health and home care services. Our families have bought properties in the city, and they are learning English. Both the old and the young members of the community are going through a complex and expensive process of becoming U.S. citizens, and many are citizens. As I speak in front of you, I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen who also holds a degree in political science, thanks to the University of Scranton for a generous 4-year scholarship. This is what Americans do. They are ingenious, they adopt, and they certainly stand up to bullies. We are not here to milk the system. We are not un-American, we are not lazy. Often what happens is that when we arrive here, the transition is not a simple thing. Anyone that has traveled to a new country where he or she does not speak the native language can relate. It's not easy. Our family, whose story was published in the newspaper, should not be politicized or be made fun of. They are new to the city, and they may be struggling a little bit, just like many of us did when we got here. It should not mean they are lazy or useless or unskilled. No human being is useless. I have a message for the Scranton residents. In Africa, we have another good saying: if you don't want monkey tails to touch you, don't attend a monkey dance. For over 7 years now, I've not had this level of hate projected towards me or the community, and I'm convinced this is not who we are as Scrantonians. We are better than this. Dear Scranton residents, please say something when you hear someone say such hateful things about people whose stories they do not know. This is not healthy for the city. We have known the city of Scranton as a hospitable city, and I suggest we keep it just as that. Hate can spread like a pandemic. Hate can spread as a pandemic, like a pandemic, and it's up to all of us to uproot it out of the city. On behalf of all the families and the community of the Congolese community of Scranton, thank you, and sorry for having taken more time than allocated to me.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I want to assure you that you are welcome here, and do not take the actions or words of a couple of our bad apples to think that that's what we're all like. I believe the vast majority of this community is loving and welcoming to immigrants from all across the world. But thank you for offering your perspective. Next on the list is Julie Schumacher Cohen.
Good evening. My name is Julie Schumacher Cohen. I'm a resident of the city of Scranton. I also work at the University of Scranton. Like others who have come here tonight, I'm deeply troubled by comments that disparage immigrants. Those made at last week's council meeting also disparaged, as we heard, Congolese refugees specifically, and went so far as to invoke concentration camps, which we know were sites of genocide where millions of Jews perished. And today is Yom Kippur. As Councilwoman Rothchild stated, this kind of rhetoric scares immigrants from wanting to be in our community rather than welcoming them. But I am not here to talk any more about that commentary, but rather the people and the topics that it raised, specifically the Congolese community, whom I've gotten to know over the past few years. We just had a chance to hear from Ushu Mukelo, a University of Scranton graduate, a hardworking father, a husband, a Congolese community leader, and a dear friend of my family. I've gotten to know Ushu over several years, meeting him when he first came to Scranton, hearing his story and that of many others in our community, Bhutanese, Syrians, Afghans, and other refugees who have found a new home in Scranton, just as immigrants who came to Scranton over 100 years ago also sought a better life here to escape poverty, famine, and other hardships. Ushu is an example of resilience, courage, and strength. He, like many in his community, overcame the horrors of civil war in the Democratic Republic of Congo, life in refugee camps, and the long journey to Scranton. He also helps those who are struggling in his community. In fact, many Congolese employ mutual aid, providing care for one another. It should come as no surprise to anyone that being resettled in a new country after having lost everything, adjusting to a new culture and language, living with trauma, that all of this would make the initial transition difficult, as we heard in the Times Tribune story that was cited last week. In the work that I've done in my role at the university and together with many community resettlement agencies, thankfully I've seen many Scrantonians open doors and open their hearts, ready to give the assistance that anyone in the situation of a refugee would hope for. Simple, really. Do unto others what you would have done them do unto you. But ultimately, Congolese, like any refugees and immigrants, are working to empower themselves, to build their own community up, and they are very much in process of doing that, as we heard from Ushu. We should support them and we should welcome them. I'm grateful for the many Congolese I've gotten to know, and I would encourage others in Scranton to get to know their refugee neighbors if you have not already. As we know, at Scranton High School, over 40 languages are spoken. In closing, I want to let Scrantonians know about opportunities for learning and community building that are coming up this fall and winter as part of a project that I lead called Scranton Story, Our Nation's Story, with many community partners. It seeks to share the different stories, histories, and experiences of this city and this country, reflecting on the work that we still have to do to form a more perfect union in the run-up to the 250th anniversary of the United States. On October 25th, we will have an event that will focus on immigration called All the Places We Come From, Stories, Food, and Community at the Scranton Cultural Center. This will include a chance for Scrantonians to share stories about migration and to build empathy, something that we very much need in our community and in our world. On November 17th, we will host a Native American leader, Curtis Zuniga of the Delaware tribe Lenape, whose ancestral homeland includes northeastern PA, for a keynote lecture. As we heard from Councilman Donahue last week, most Americans have some immigrant story, but not everyone. That includes indigenous nations who were here before it was the United States. It's also true for African Americans, whose ancestors were brought here forcibly during the slave trade. And we will also have events in the winter of 2023 highlighting the Black history and experience of Scranton with the Black Scranton Project. The public can find out about these free events that are funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities at scranton.edu/Scranton Story. I appreciate your time and attention this evening, and I believe firmly that our country, our democracy, our city is strengthened by our diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you for the work you do. Next on the list, Doris Koloski.
Hi. Well, I was here last week when the hateful speech took part, and I was kind of ashamed of myself that I didn't get up right then and say something like Jessica said, Dr. Rothchild said, because I was so aggravated and angry, I was really afraid to come up and talk, because I think the words I would have said would have been flying around. So first of all, tonight, what I want to do is I want to welcome these people, these Congolese families. I want to welcome them to the United States of America, and I also want to welcome them to the city of Scranton. Now, when that hateful speech brought in the Holocaust, it hit close to home. I myself should be in synagogue tonight because it's our highest holy day when we ask for atonement. But I felt I had to come and speak and say, because we've always said, never again. That was our cry, never again when you see this. And these things can happen again. Look what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. And look how welcoming the Polish people were to all those people crossing the border, carrying their animals and their children with them. We have to welcome them. This hits close to home to me because my granddaughter, whose father-in-law, entire family, perished in the Holocaust except for his mother and father. My best friend growing up, Lucille Crone, Monroe Avenue, her father was in the concentration camps. His whole family was slaughtered except for his brother.
Leon the Tailor. I don't know if any of the old timers will remember the Leon Padalowski's tailor shop on Spruce Street. He was in the concentration camp. He was my neighbor on the 400 of Colfax, and I used to have to walk my dog, not by his house. And he'd say to me, Doris, I know your German Shepherd is friendly, but when you come by my house with it, it takes me back. So how anyone could equate doing anything like that to anybody else, no matter who they are, I don't want to say anything that I'm not going to say or get in trouble with, but this is how I feel, and I think this is how everybody I know that I'm friends with, and they're not they're Jewish, they're Catholic, they're Protestant, they're Muslim, they're whoever I know, do not feel this way. So we just want these families to know we don't feel this way. This is a select few, and those same select few, they felt the same way about my parents and myself and the Italian people when they came over and the Irish people when they came over. But we're now in 2022, and we should know better. We shouldn't be frightened of the unknown. And when they open up a great Congolese restaurant, I bet everyone will be there to try their food. There would be no pizza without the Italian immigrants. There'd be no soul food without certain immigrants. There wouldn't be any Abe's Delicatessen without immigrants, and there'd be no Chinese dinners without immigrants, etc. There's more. Vietnamese, everybody, Irish, but you wouldn't have an Irish pub to go to. Now, so I don't get in trouble for not talking about Scranton, on Olive Street and Colfax Avenue, there is one side that wasn't cut down for the handicapped. And being handicapped, I know this because I have to go around a little bit. All the sidewalks up there were cut down, and somehow they just missed that one. Now I shouldn't be in trouble for not talking about the city. Thank you.
So, thank you, Doris. Doris, that was a handicap sign? It was a handicap sign that wasn't? Oh, okay, on the curb, yes, okay. We'll look into that, thank you. Next on the list is Glynis Johns.
Well, good evening, council and city residents. I just felt very moved today to bring support and solidarity for everything that we have heard today. It's gross and disgusting that we still have to create testimonies and stand here and talk about your immigrant story when there's so many people that don't necessarily have to. And I might sound funny saying this as I constantly advocate create oral histories and document our history, but no one else has to come to this podium and stand for their residency in the city of Scranton. When Ushu was speaking, I was reminded of a resident here in the early 1900s who became the first African-American, or the first black person to be a naturalized citizen through the city of Scranton's naturalization courts. Obviously, the story is not too similar, but this gentleman and his family had to fight for the right to live in the Hill section. He bought a property on Prescott Avenue, and all of the residents on Prescott Avenue did not want to have a black person living next to them because it would change their property value, they would be dangerous, and all those things. And so what has happened has reminded me of that, and that there's still so much work to do. But simultaneously, I'm so proud of the people who came here to speak up for our friends, our neighbors, our residents, and the people who need to be most protected. I didn't prepare anything today. I just wanted to come up here and show solidarity to my brothers and sisters that are here, or anybody who feels marginalized or left out in the city of Scranton, because that's not fair, and that's the basis of the nonprofit that I created. Some of you know I started coming to the city council meetings in 2016 and talking about these very topics and creating space and having people come up here and say disgusting things to people that do not look like them, who feel like this city was for them, was built for them, when in actuality, a lot of us have been here before your ancestors have came here. And that's not to play a tick for tat or say who has, the longest ancestry. It just shows that we all come here for a certain reason, and we all love this city for various reasons and a lot of commonalities. So with that, I want to just remind everybody that we are a community, and I just want to continue to create space for folks and remind people of stories that are relevant. And I want to thank Julie Schumacher Cohen, who is working with us in the University of Scranton to share our Scranton story. And so this weekend, we are also inviting people to the Center for Arts and Culture to share their Scranton story, to say what Black Scranton means to them, and we can start telling the story of our city the way that we see fit. So thank you. I don't need 5 minutes. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Glennis, and thank you for the work you do. Next on the list is Ron Ellman.
Well, the big bad Ron is finally up here. First off, I apologize for any I offended by my inadvertent usage of concentration camp last week, because I meant to use internment camps.
Mr. Ellman, that's not any better.
How can I express this?
I know, but that's,
all right,
it isn't.
Nothing more controversial.
I'm just saying
I'm sorry.
that's, yes, thank you.
I don't know how to say something without saying a word, Anything else I said, I stand behind. You people wouldn't be up there if it weren't for taxes. Taxes for put our kids in school. I complained about 6 children at $15,000 apiece. And I'm the bad guy. Taxes for people to walk on the sidewalk, the street lights. That's not important to you people. And Kelly's article in the paper attacking me, that's the pot calling the kettle black. This man has spent outrageous hours and hours writing the most hatred things about the then president, Mr. Trump, the Republican Party, and close to half the people in the country. And then in his extreme leftist paper, twice a week he's allowed to do this. I have 5 minutes up here, you can't wait to tell me to shut up and sit down. I'm an honorably discharged veteran, 8 years in the Air National Guard and the Reserves. What's Kelly?
Mr. Just please revert. Please don't make any personal attacks.
All
You
right.
can make your point without making any
Okay.
personal attacks.
I got about 300 signatures last year when I felt like I might run for a seat up there. And I know I talked to another 100 people. You people know how hard that is. It's a job. How many people do you think Kelly has talked to in his whole career in this city? Maybe 25, 50. I first attended a meeting in the 80s in this very room with Jimmy Clee. All the meetings I've been to year after year, I've never seen Kelly attend one. He doesn't know what goes on in here except secondhand. To me, his article, he's just a phony hypocrite that gets by with half-truths and misleading information. His very article against me leaves out facts so he can get his opinion over on everybody, I suppose. But on the other hand, real quick, we had a 20-year-old cat was sick. I stayed up with it till 4 o'clock this morning. And at 2 o'clock, I had to take it to the vet to put it down. Mr. Kelly wrote a beautiful article last year that was very impressive to me about his occasion when he had to put an animal to sleep. I guess there's not all bad in both of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Dave Dobson.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson. You know, excuse the mask, but every time I walk into a doctor's office, I get more of something show on me. Something else was discovered last summer. You know, it's just ungodly. I picked Scranton myself because I lived in a lot of different towns around, and small farm towns and things up in Susquehanna County. It's amazing what people can find a fight about. You got a homogeneous society, and everybody looks the same or pretty much the same, and they come home. One guy has 490 acres, and his next door neighbor has 495. And because the driveway is mislocated a little bit, there's one of those Jersey blocks right across the front of his driveway. It's just amazing how people can invent things that they really shouldn't even be concerned about. The only time I'm concerned about taxes is that we keep getting buildings, public buildings and tax-exempt buildings increasing and increasing and increasing. And there are a lot of old people that are having a hard time here. And young people, I'm sure, because I didn't have I didn't have Nirvana. My father didn't leave $450 million to me. And on immigrants and refugees, a lot of the reason that they are here is because some of our politicians have supported people like Putin. And one of the people that are being negotiated for a trade for Brittany Griner and another person with probably trumped up charges. It's probably a bunch of BS. She might be just saying she had those cartridges because she was told, don't bother saying you were set up or whatever. And maybe she did have them. But anyway, they've been running around. Victor Boot has a C-130 style transport loaded up with machine guns and rockets and grenades and everything, and he runs around peddling them. I have heard of AK-47s in emerging countries being sold for $5. They may not shoot very well, they may not be very accurate, but they're damn effective in a little village when you want to get your point across. And it's all over. It's in Asia, it's in Africa, South America, Europe. It's just a shame, and we have to really, really clamp down. Today I read an article where they're selling the Ukrainian grain to Turkey, one of our alleged NATO partners. And the ships that shipped the grain couldn't have left the ports that they proclaimed because the draft was half the draft that the ship would have ran aground. And, I'd like to apologize, but that's the reason that I never try not to say anything like that. I hope I'm not around when I'm silly and old enough to think that way. But I moved to Scranton because I saw a lot of diversity, and I had a pretty good time, and then we got a mayor that just took it all away. And we had Mayor Connors, we had the music festival up the park. I saw a lot of old acquaintances and made some new ones, and I thought this is pretty nice, and I found a very reasonable house to buy, and I bought it. And I've been here since, and I'll probably be carried out some night, and hopefully not next week. Have a good night.
Thank you. That exhausts the sign-in sheet for this evening. Would anyone else like to address council?
Tom Cohen, Manuka. First of all, I'd like to touch base on the brief comment that was brought up slightly tonight. The word internment camp creeped into this room. Beforehand, I've talked about how we don't recognize and have not taught as much about internment camps that happened in the United States. How devastating, how horrible, and how wrong they were to strip people of their constitutional rights and their rights of human dignity and property. They were completely illegal, and they were taken against citizens out of fear. And it was not just the Japanese population, who was more common in California, who were prisoners in the internment camp. We actually had 2 German internment camps in the United States. We also had 1 Italian internment camp in the United States. A lot of this just is not taught, and a lot of people don't go into how much was lost by all of the people who were stripped of their property, their homes, their family, and their dignity. And that's a large issue. Before coming here, I watched multiple airstrikes in Seladov as I've been monitoring and working with people for the past 7 months over in Ukraine. As we're talking now, people are under fire from combat. That is a reality we've seen. Hatred is out there. Aggression is out there. And it must be addressed. I thank the people here for standing up for that and giving that a voice that it's not acceptable. Now on to city business. We had mentioned the flag. The mayor had mentioned bringing back, redoing the flag again. Maybe it could be the city of taxes, or the city that Biden left, or the city of 1,000 patches in honor of our roadways. I think the flag is something that does not need to be anywhere near our agenda at this point of our economic struggles. Looking to the parking contract on the list tonight, it looks like we're going to try and extend it to 2067 and introduce a 3% per year increase. How nice. I mean, a 45-year, an extension for 45 years from the date of signing. It's no more than selling the parking spaces permanently.
I do want to point out, it's not a 45-year extension. The original deal, I believe, was 45.
It's a continuation.
So
from the time
it's
that this
basically a
goes through.
6-year extension. But go ahead.
Understood, but it's still selling more time to them and also giving them money for repairs for businesses that they are going to sell as part of a retail front is in there through the Recovery Act, which is supposed to be for the people of this city. not for outside business investment companies. Last, touching on it, is the DPW contract. So we have a 9% increase, 2%, then 3.5, then 3.5. In Section 5, sufficient for discharge, it's surprising that it's not introduced in Section 3. It states willful abuse of city-owned or leased property. Should it not be amended to unauthorized or willful abuse of city-owned property? Like if someone dared to remove for use for personal gain, for an example, a pressure washer for an extended period of time. Not that that would ever happen. Contract data. Again, we're setting the contract to December 31st. Why don't we set it 6 months later to June 31st so the bodies actually have a time to come together and negotiate this before budget? Performance bonuses in there. Unlimited in scope, so the director can get a performance bonus. That's really convenient. The city's pension plan. Why aren't we switching to a 401k rather than continuing the pension plan that's bearing us? There's more, including the carryover time, but I'm out of time and I'll save that for next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. And just to bring up that in terms of the NDC agreement that's on our list, NDC will be in for a public caucus next week to answer any of council's questions and for them to present what's on our agenda this evening. Would anyone else like to address council?
Yes. Marie Schumacher. I have a bunch of questions tonight, but first I would like to thank you. I'm assuming you guys were responsible for getting that sign down on Music Street that was blocking the vision of us small people. Moving on, though. 7D. 7D. I hope you do not pass that if there is not an amendment going to be made tonight that specifies when that is done.
We did get a response, and that will appear in our third order next week, that the contract is a 12-month duration. Is that what you're referring to? The questions we asked last week?
Yes.
We did get a response. It came yesterday after.
Did you read it though? It says in there they will do their best. Is I think the way it was to make it a 12. That's why I brought up, because I've seen them bump this down. HRG is pretty good at that. Look at how just stormwater in and of itself is. Remember too, you said by the end of the year. Remember?
I was pretty close.
Okay.
For municipal government time, you can't say I wasn't close.
Okay.
But like I said too,
Yeah.
Throughout my time here, I thought that we would never even get to this point, but we have. So we are making progress there.
Okay. And then now the Times Tribune had a editorial on the aesthetics of this city, and was really were writing in terms of making sure that the center city or center street goes ahead. I'd like to put my 2 cents in and say that for that quarter of a block, that goes down to the bottom of the priority list. When you look at that, have to look, going up to Lackawanna Avenue from that, when I did go down and look what it's named, Station Center, up to the Radisson. That is terrible. We have money to give. We have our, some of that American Rescue Plan. We're giving it to other people. Why can't we put it into that project? The county has money, we have money. Why don't we just get that done? That is disgusting. And I think we deserve, everybody deserves to know, is the rental income taxed under the new taxing of
It's my
business.
understanding that's the position the city is taking. We're still, expecting
Well, I mean,
to
I think
have, we're
everybody-
expecting to have Berkheimer in for a discussion on that October 25th.
But it's already been, that should have been publicized then, if that is part of it, but
I believe it's the city's position that it is in the ordinance, and that's the way it should be enforced.
Okay, and then Cedar Avenue, does anybody know why it was milled and when they're ever going to come back to pave it?
So I do know, because that's under PennDOT's control, I do know that the contractor had a delay, an unexpected delay in getting some of the concrete, not necessarily the asphalt, but the concrete to put on underneath as a base. There was an unexpected delay there, and, excuse me, it's also my understanding that it should be paved within the next week and a half, 2 weeks.
Excellent. Is the LERTA program ended now?
No, the LERTA program extends for 10 years.
10 years? No, that's the people who
It was-
signed up.
it was-
But you can,
so
so
it goes
it's
both
really a
ways.
20-year program then? Somebody could do it on the
Essentially, it could
last
be,
day?
yes.
Pardon?
Essentially, it could be, yes.
Yes, okay. Got that. Now, 5E, why are we doing that when just a couple months ago, I believe it was, you were giving our OECD director a nice bump up in salary and a title that includes that, doing the work for that. And she said she had time. Now, why are we then going to put this out? Oops, I'm sorry.
This isn't managing the program, it's collecting meaningful data on the performance of the program. That's my understanding of it.
Well, I would think that would be part of the director's job, but I'm out of time.
Thank
I'll be
you.
back next week, good Lord willing.
Would anyone else like to address council this evening? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments?
The only comment I have is, unfortunately, I was not able to make the meeting last week. I had a work commitment, and I couldn't be here, but I'm just proud to say that I'm a proud Scrantonian, number 7 of 8 children, born and raised here, attended all Scranton schools, actually ran Scranton schools, and have been proud to celebrate the diversity in our city and welcome people from all over the world to our great city. And I love the fact that we've become even more and more diverse over the last 20 to 25 years, and I think it makes our city a greater place. If I had to miss a meeting, I'm kind of glad I wasn't here to hear that. I did watch it on YouTube and was saddened to hear that type of speech. But I'm just here to say that I'm proud to be a member of this city and of this community and to celebrate all the great aspects of our city, including our diversity. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes, so I did get an update on the audit. So what was given to me from the auditor was that last week they received the trial balances for the general fund and special cities fund of the city. However, they noted that the general fund trial balance does not balance to zero. There's a difference in debits and credits of $3,370,887.14, and they noted that the equity does not properly roll forward in the general fund from 2020. There's a couple other items that they're looking to get. Some of them are with Rainey. They also need the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and several others. The loan fund that went through OECD, HUD programs should be broken out in more detail, like they had breakouts in prior years. Whether there was any expenditures through the Coronavirus Relief Fund in 2020, any expenditures in ARPA for 2021. And they're still waiting on the Sewer Authority audit, Scranton Redevelopment Authority audit, and additional items and testing that go along with the audit. So that's the latest update I got there with that. That's all, Mr. Donahue.
Thank you. Dr. Rothschild, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes, I do have a comment. I just wanted to thank the community members who came out here tonight to stand up against hate and bigotry and what we had heard last week. I also wanted to thank especially the USHU, the members from the Congolese community who came here tonight to share more about the Congolese as well as their struggles to come here as refugees. I would love to learn more about your culture and your experiences here. I'm here as a council member to stand up for everyone in Scranton. We represent the city entirely. We don't have certain sections of the city or certain people. We're here for everyone. And to the immigrants and the refugees that are here in our city, I just want you to know that you are welcome and you belong. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
I have a couple. So, Mr. Voldenberg, I'd like to revisit a couple issues that were brought to my attention and then forwarded to your attention. This one, same resident, this was brought up almost a year ago, requesting an update or follow-up with parking issues of South Irving and Alder Street, and then also South Irving and Willow Street. Many people are parking too close to the corners, obstructing views of oncoming traffic, which presents an accident scenario. So I know this was looked at. I'm not sure if where we're at with this, so please ask for an update on that.
I will, sir.
All right, so then also, a few concerned residents have reached out to me about blight and quality of life issues with the property on 723 North Main Avenue. Also, the backyard is in the 700 block of Hyde Park. I guess code enforcement has been called by neighbors with no callbacks or visible visits to this property. So could you please contact them and make them aware? And I'm still receiving complaints about the pool issue. So the Western Field swimming remains a concern with residents and members. A few more members have reached out to me. Almost everywhere I go, over the weekend, at least someone has reached out to me about the concerns that we brought forward over the past couple weeks. One was actually from a former volunteer and also a member. So as a paying member at Western Field and a daily user of the pool, as well as a volunteer conductor who uses the aquasize classes, the hours of operations went from 5.5 days and 3, and then hours of 5 evenings a week. So now it's down to, a couple days a week, like we said, over the past couple weeks. And they received a quick notification that it's closed for the first 2 weeks of October. So these concerns, along with others, in summary, after I spoke to, at least 3 more this week, 2 of them being the same, that they understand the lack of finding lifeguards or maintaining lifeguards. They get that, but it's only been a problem up until this year. What they do want is they don't understand why the administration is not making this a priority and not trying to acquire them. So their suggestions, they still have great suggestions as to reaching out to the area colleges, to students that have been lifeguards or certified that can work in between classes, because they just want a set schedule. They want to re-up their memberships. They don't want to take, public transportation, or some of them live out of town, drive from North Pocono, come down here, and then there's a note at the door that they're closed. They're having a great issue with this. So with that said, they said, please, can they take our ideas and at least, help us understand or help us be part of the solution instead of not knowing. Another one being maybe conduct a class itself at Western Field to certify lifeguards. Promote it, advertise it. So with that said, can you please send these bullets again and just ask if they, they can be part of the process, or actually sit down with these residents/members that are very concerned about this social and therapeutic, exercise that they've been doing for years, and now they don't have anything concrete, or there's no answer to the solution. So if you could please forward that to administration, I think they would like to sit down, help, solve the problem, and move on from there. And what else do I have? That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Like I mentioned at the beginning, before citizens' participation tonight, the citizens' participation portion of our meeting, I do truly believe represents democracy in action. A lot of times, that's a place where citizens could express their frustrations, their concerns. Unfortunately, sometimes you get off-colored comments. And oftentimes, when you're sitting up here, you leave here and you'll leave, and you might be frustrated, you might be discouraged, just for a short period, but tonight's not one of those nights. Tonight's one of those nights where I could say I'm proud to be a Scrantonian because of the love and support that the community did show to say that these words, don't belong here. So, and it was done for the most part in a completely respectful way, and I appreciate that from everybody. It really is an honor to represent the citizens of this city, and I think that, we'll continue to do the work to benefit everybody, not just the people that voted for us, not the people, that supported us, but for everybody. It's an all-inclusive thing, and I'm happy to be sitting up here with my 4 colleagues, because I believe they all believe in this city, and that's why they're here. But it is refreshing to, leave here tonight and not be completely discouraged or frustrated, but instead to be proud to represent this city. So I want to thank everybody for just expressing your opinions tonight in a respectful manner, and I am proud to represent all of you. And that's all I have. Mr. Voldenberg?
B for introduction, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into an agreement with Local Lodge 2305 of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, AFL-CIO.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, an ordinance amending file to council number 37 of 2016, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into concession agreements with Community Development Properties, Inc. with respect to metered parking in the city of Scranton and the garages owned by the Parking Authority of the city of Scranton, Pennsylvania, pursuant to the Scranton Metered Parking System Concession and Services Agreement and Scranton Parking Facilities System Concession and Lease Agreement, and to authorize certain actions and ancillary agreements contemplated by the Metered System Concession Agreement and the Facilities Concession Agreement as amended by file of council number 23, 2018, to authorize the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into the Third Amendment to Concession and Lease Agreement to amend Article 2, Section 2.1 to extend the term to 45 years from date of execution, Article 7, Section 7.1 to adopt a new rate schedule, Article 4 to authorize application for American Rescue Plan funds for capital improvements, and Exhibit G to update the list of meter closure dates to include Juneteenth.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved?
Second.
On the question, like I mentioned before, NDC will be in for a public caucus next week to discuss this proposal, the reasoning behind it, et cetera. And that caucus will be at 5:45. Anyone else on the question?
On the question, if we could just have Solicitor Gallagher take a look at this and go over to see if anything stands out to you.
The only thing that I noticed, and I spoke with Councilman Donahue, the previous original agreement and First Amendment are cited in this Third Amendment, and so would be appropriate if they were also included in the, attached to this Third Amendment.
Yeah,
so we know,
and
it specifically cites certain sections, so we know what we're talking about when we pass it.
And I did ask Mr. Voldenberg before the meeting to request the original concession agreement so that we could compare and have something to reference, the references in the backup too. And then I'm also hopeful we could put that in the backup too for next week.
I'll do that, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, a resolution authorizing the City Council of Scranton and Mayor to send a letter of support for passage of the Respect for Marriage Act to the United States Senate.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I wanted to provide some background and insight into this piece of legislation tonight. Back in 2015, that was when the Supreme Court decision was made, which allowed for same-sex marriage rights throughout the country. And since the overturning of Roe v. Wade and some of the opinions that have come out, it's very possible and real that that decision could be tried to be overturned as well. And this is obviously very personal for me, as I'm married to a woman. We actually had gotten married in 2015, the same year that Supreme Court decision was made, and we've been fearful ourselves of what the future could hold for LGBTQ Americans. And so what the Senate is trying to do is to pass legislation that would codify same-sex marriage into law. It would repeal the Defense of Marriage Act. It would enshrine marriage equality for federal law purposes, and it would also provide additional legal protections from individuals seeking to undermine marriage equality while acting under state law, including for out-of-state marriages. And so this is a joint letter with the mayor. I would ask for support from my fellow council members in sending this letter in support of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with the Institute to perform Scranton American Rescue Plan programmatic evaluation services.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved?
Second.
On the question, Attorney Gallagher, I know that if we were able to have our regular caucus tonight, you would have brought up some issues. So could you just briefly explain those, if you would?
Yeah, Councilman Schuster, I believe in the beginning of the year, had repeatedly requested additional backup for those who not only won the bid, but the other bidders of on these RFPs and RFQs. So I think that would be appropriate if they were also included and sent down to us. And also, unless I just didn't see it, I don't believe that the insurance certificates were attached with the submission. So as long as they have that, then we should be okay, but I think that needs to be included as well.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Voldenberg, would you be able to pass?
I will. I'll
Attorney
secure,
Gallagher's.
I'll secure both.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, filed to council number 24, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the city of Scranton to accept payment from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for one right-of-way and one temporary construction easement.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6B, reading by title, filed to council number 25, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the city of Scranton to accept payment from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for two rights-of-way and two temporary construction easements.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, filed to council number 22, 2022, approving the license agreement between the city of Scranton, Pennsylvania and Lackawanna College.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
The chairperson for the Committee on Public Works recommends final adoption of 7A.
Second.
On the question? On the question, I know we did ask for a schedule of when Lackawanna will be using Schick-Feldman Field. We did receive that yesterday, but it was right after our deadline to post, so that the schedule will appear in third order next week. Anyone else on the question?
I just had some concerns about the, making sure the upkeep and maintenance of the field was done to our specifications, hoping that we would make sure that the college was maintaining the field as they said in the agreement. I wish the language in that was a little bit stronger. That's all.
Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for adoption, filed to council number 23, 2022, designating back-in angle parking for certain blocks of St. Anne Street.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, for consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for adoption, resolution number 127, 2022, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Fitch and Associates to perform a feasibility study for emergency management services within the city of Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question? On the question, I know Attorney Gallagher had, discovered a couple issues with this. Attorney Gallagher, will you just outline those? It would have been brought up if we had our regular caucus.
Well, much like the HRG contract from last week, this one doesn't appear to have an end date to the contract. So if we could send out to city administration to get the date as to how long this contract's going to be prior to passing it. I think you'd be better off.
I will,
Okay,
Mr.
thank you. Mr. Voldenberg, would you send that request along just for further clarification there?
I will.
Anyone else on the question?
Yes, on the question, I'd like to make a motion to table 7C.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to table 7C and a second. All those, and on the question, on the motion to table? All those in favor of tabling to request additional information signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. 7C is tabled.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 128, 2022, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials for the City of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement with Herbert, Roland, and Grubik, Inc., HRG, for East Mountain Stormwater Drainage Assessment.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E, previously tabled, filed the Council Number 19, 2022, approving and accepting the City of Scranton capital budget for the year 2023 pursuant to Section 904 of the city's Home Rule Charter.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final vote on item 7E.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, there was a couple things I brought up with the capital budget that I'm really not in favor with. The $1.8 million purchasing of another building for City Hall, also a fleet of electric vehicles. With them still being in that capital budget, I will be voting no tonight for that.
Anyone else on the question?
On the question, I'll be honest with you, I like the majority of all the items on the capital budget that presented, especially the public safety pieces. They were all need to have, not nice to have. But I was strongly against, and I brought it up, even while this was tabled, that I'm not in favor of buying a building rumored to be next door for $1.8 million. I see no need for that. And I'm on the fence about the electric cars, a fleet of them. I pose the questions, that they require special training to work on them. I'm all for clean energy, but it seems like, we're the guinea pig for that process that, we hear a lot of horror stories about how to store them, where to store them. In garages, they're blowing up. Batteries cost as much as a new transmission in another car. So I'm not against clean energy, but I just think we shouldn't be the guinea pigs for this. So for them reasons, I'm voting no for the capital budget.
Anyone else on the question? On the question, I don't think I agree with absolutely everything in here either, but it's more of a long-term plan than anything set in stone. I think, the vast majority of these initiatives would require either another vote, whether it's on the budget or, any sort of agreements, contracts that would be required here. So for that reason, I will vote yes on this piece tonight. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
No.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F, previously tabled, Resolution Number 118, 2022, authorizing the Mayor, Office of Economic and Community Development, and other appropriate city officials for the City of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement with Highland Associates to design and construction phase consultation services for restoration and repairs to the exterior of Scranton City Hall.
I make a motion to amend Resolution Number 118 of 2022 as follows. Replace Exhibit A with the correct Exhibit A. In the second whereas clause, delete it demolition engineering.
Second.
On the amendment, on the motion to amend, all those in favor of amending resolution number 118 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7F as amended.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7F as amended, legally and lawfully adopted.
Eighth order, 8A, file the council number 9, 2022.
This piece of legislation is the updated zoning ordinance. It has been tabled to allow for additional input, any changes and/or amendments. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.